There are dozens of signs all around that we barely pay attention to. Exit signs, speed limits, wet floor warnings. They blend into the background, just part of the environment. I'd never thought much about them either. Then, a few months ago, I'd stumbled across a warning sign I'd never seen before. It was for a place where the tide comes in faster than you can run. I looked into it, found the death toll, found the stories. And I couldn't stop. One sign led to another. A beach in Costa Rica, a billabong in Australia, an electrical substation that looked completely ordinary. Each one had a body count. The more I dug, the more I realized some signs aren't trying to inform. They're trying to scare, because fear is the only thing that might stop someone from getting killed. This iceberg is the result of that research. We're starting at the surface. By the bottom, there are warnings that were never meant to be understood at all. Tier 1, surface level. Case 1, falling rocks. So I'm driving through British Columbia last year. Mountain highway, beautiful scenery, you know the type. Cliffs on one side, drop on the other. That kind of road that makes you feel like you're in a car commercial. And I passed this sign. Red triangle, little cartoon rocks tumbling down. Falling rocks. And I remember thinking, wait, what am I supposed to do with that information? Like most warning signs give you something. Slow down, stop, don't swim here. There's an action attached. This one just says, falling rocks. That's it. That's the whole warning. We know rocks fall here. We know they've killed people. We know they'll fall again. Good luck. So I started looking into it, because that's what I do now apparently. I see a sign and I have to know why it exists. And what I found was uncomfortable. In British Columbia alone, 13 people have died from rock falls on mountain highways over an 87-year period. Doesn't sound like a lot until you actually think about what that means. 13 people who were just driving, going to work, coming home from seeing family. One second they're changing the song, the next second a boulder the size of a refrigerator is coming through their windshield. And it's getting worse. Climate change is speeding up erosion. Freeze-thaw cycles are cracking rocks loose faster than ever. The mountains are literally falling apart in slow motion. Some highways have mitigation, catch ditches, wire mesh holding the rock face together, barriers. Most don't. Most just have the sign. And here's the part that got me. I found some engineering reports, and there's this argument that the sign exists primarily for legal protection, not to save you, to protect the highway authority from liability. We warned you. You chose to drive through anyway. The rocks don't care if you saw the sign. They're coming down on their own schedule. And when you're passing through a falling rock zone, you're not really driving. You're gambling. The sign isn't a warning, it's a waiver. Case 2, extreme fire danger today. There's this sign that's been standing at the entrance to American forests since 1944. Smokey Bear, ranger hat, friendly face, pointing at a little sliding scale, low, moderate, high, very high, extreme. You've seen it your whole life. It's basically Americana at this point. A childhood memory. Background decoration on every family camping trip you've ever taken. And I never thought about it, not once, until I started looking into what extreme actually means. Because here's the thing, we've all seen that sign on high before, probably even very high. Maybe you saw it on extreme once or twice and thought, that's not great. And then you kept driving. Nothing happened. So you stop paying attention. You start thinking extreme is just a slightly worse version of very high. Another level on the scale. Marketing almost. It's not. When that arrow hits extreme, the physics of fire change. Fires stop spreading like fires. They start creating their own weather. Updrafts so powerful they form thunderclouds made of smoke and ash. Lightning that strikes miles away and starts new fires. Winds that didn't exist 5 minutes ago, born from the heat itself. Fire tornadoes become possible. I'm not being dramatic. Actual tornadoes made of fire, spinning at over 100 miles per hour, ripping trees out of the ground and throwing embers across highways. November 8, 2018, Paradise, California. The sign read extreme that morning. By afternoon, the town didn't exist anymore. The campfire spread at a rate of 80 football fields per minute. I had to read that twice. 80. per minute. People couldn't get out of their driveways. Cars melted on the road with people still inside them. 85 people died. 18,000 structures gone. The deadliest wildfire in California history. And Smokey was standing at the entrance the whole time, pointing at the sign, telling everyone exactly what was about to happen. The problem is, we grew up with that bear. We think he's being cautious. We think extreme is the system being dramatic. It's not dramatic. It's the only honest word they have left. Extreme means if a fire starts today, no one can stop it. Not the firefighters, not the helicopters, not all the water in the world. You can only run, if you're fast enough. Some regions have started adding new categories now. The old scale wasn't built for what we're seeing. The fires we're getting today would have been science fiction 50 years ago. But Smokey's still there, still pointing at the sign. He's not smiling anymore though. At least that's how I see him now. Case 3, thin ice, danger. This one's personal for me, not because I fell through ice, but because I almost watched someone else do it. I was maybe 15. Winter break, there's this lake near where I grew up, and every year when it froze over, people would just walk on it, skate on it, let their kids run around on it. And there was always a sign at the edge, danger, thin ice. Faded, leaning a little. Nobody looked at it, including me. Because the ice looked fine. It looked solid. Kids were skating on it yesterday, what's the problem? That's the trap. I didn't understand until years later, when I started actually researching this stuff, that ice lies. It's not uniform. It doesn't freeze evenly. There are currents underneath, springs feeding warmer water into certain spots, sections that froze last week and sections that froze this morning. You can't tell the difference by looking. And then there's shelf ice. Shelf ice forms along shorelines, these dramatic photogenic formations that pile up near the water's edge. People walk out on them to take pictures. Kids climb on them because they look cool. What they don't see are the gaps, the hollow spots, the places where the ice is paper thin and the water below is moving. If you fall through shelf ice near the shore, the current can pull you under the solid ice further out. Rescuers might be standing 10 feet away from you and have no way to reach you. Your body doesn't come back until spring. In 2019, there were 65 ice-related fatalities across the United States. 65 people in one winter who went through. Snowmobilers, ice fishermen, kids playing on frozen ponds, people walking their dogs who went in trying to save them. And almost every single one of them walked past a sign that said exactly what was going to happen. Here's what got me though. I found this researcher, Gordon Geisbrecht. He's a hypothermia scientist who has intentionally plunged himself into frozen lakes dozens of times to study what happens to the human body. Dozens of times, on purpose. And his message after all that research, after all those controlled experiments, is brutally simple. Stay off the ice or prepare to go through. That's it. That's the takeaway from the guy who knows more about this than anyone alive. But the part that really haunts me, the part I can't stop thinking about, most ice drownings aren't the person who falls through. They're the person who tries to save them. A father reaches for a kid. A friend crawls out to help. A stranger sees someone struggling and runs onto the ice without thinking. And now there are 2 people in the water instead of 1. The sign was right there the whole time. Nobody read it. These are the signs you've seen your whole life. Falling rocks, fire danger, thin ice. You probably drove past one this week without thinking twice. But here's what separates Tier 1 from what comes next. The signs we just talked about, they're warning you about forces of nature. Gravity, fire, cold. Things that don't care whether you're there or not. They're going to happen anyway, you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The signs in Tier 2 are different. These warnings exist because something is actively hunting. Something in the water. Something that's been waiting. And unlike a rock falling from a cliff, these things know you're there. Tier 2, below the surface. Case 4, rip currents here all year. High risk for drowning. Costa Rica beaches. I almost went to Costa Rica last year. Had the trip planned. Pacific Coast, one of those beaches you see on Instagram. Pristine white sand, palm trees, water so blue it doesn't look real. I was looking at hotels when I started reading reviews. And that's when I fell down one of those research holes I can't climb out of. Because buried in those reviews, between people talking about sunsets and howler monkeys, were these other stories. Tourists who'd gone in up to their waists, tourists who'd been standing in hip-deep water one second and fighting for their lives the next. One mother wrote about her 19-year-old son, Ravi Thakardeen, pre-med student at Swarthmore. Brilliant kid. He was in Costa Rica on a Duke study abroad program, studying public health of all things, researching how to save lives. On the last day of the semester, the program took the students to Playa Tortuga as a surprise celebration. They told them it was safe to swim. They told them if they got caught in a current, just swim parallel to shore. Ravi waded in, hip-deep water. He treaded water for over half an hour, calling for help before he went under. The tourists on the beach said if they'd had a piece of rope, just a rope, they could have saved him. His body was found 3 days later by a fishing boat. That was 2012. His mother still writes about him. There's now a federal bill named after him, the Ravi Thakardeen Safe Students Study Abroad Act, because she refused to let his death disappear into statistics. And here's what those statistics say. In Costa Rica, drowning is the leading cause of accidental death for foreign visitors. More than 50 people die in rip currents there every year. 90% of those drownings happen on just 5% of the country's beaches. The same beaches, over and over again. Playa Cockles, Playa Tortuga, Jaco, Hermosa. You've probably heard of Playa Cockles now. That's where Malcolm Jamal Warner, Theo from The Cosby Show, drowned in July 2025. He was 54. He was there with his wife. His 8-year-old daughter was in the water with him when the current took him. A surfer got the daughter out. A volunteer lifeguard pulled Warner to shore. They did CPR for 45 minutes. Researchers have been studying that beach for years. They've measured rip currents at Playa Cockles moving at 2.8 meters per second. For context, Michael Phelps set an Olympic record at 2.1 meters per second. The current at that beach is faster than the fastest human who ever lived. And here's the part that really got me. A survey at Costa Rican beaches found that most visitors didn't even look at the warning signs. And of those who did look, many couldn't interpret what the signs meant. They saw rip currents and didn't change their behavior at all. Because tourists make assumptions. They see a manicured path leading to the water, a resort right there on the sand, other people swimming, and they assume someone checked. They assume if it wasn't safe, they wouldn't have built a hotel here. But that's not how it works. Costa Rica has over 600 beaches. More than 80% of them have no lifeguard system at all. The government doesn't fund it. And the beaches where people keep dying, they're often the same ones in the tourism brochures. The sign says, rip currents here all year. It says, high risk for drowning. But the path still leads to the water. The hotel is still right there. And every year, people who can't swim faster than an Olympic gold medalist walk past that sign and wade in anyway. Because the beach looks so beautiful, and the sign is just a sign. Case 5. Marine stingers. Box jellyfish warning signs. Australia. Here's the thing that broke my brain about the box jellyfish. It has 24 eyes. I know, stay with me here because when I read that, I had to stop and reread it 3 times. We're talking about a jellyfish, a blob, a drifting, brainless, boneless sack of water that we picture floating aimlessly through the ocean like a plastic bag caught in a current. Except the box jellyfish doesn't drift, it hunts. It has 24 eyes arranged in 4 clusters of 6. And some of those eyes, 4 of them, can actually form images. They point upward always, no matter how the jellyfish is oriented. Scientists discovered that they use these eyes to look through the water's surface at the mangrove canopy above, navigating by landmarks like a sailor reading the stars. A creature with no brain, using visual landmarks to navigate. And here's what really got me. When researchers blocked the jellyfish's view of the canopy, they lost all orientation. They swam randomly. They need to see where they're going. So when you're wading into the warm, shallow water off northern Australia's coast, and the water is so clear and calm and inviting, there might be something in there that sees you, that watches you, that can swim toward you at twice the speed you can swim away. And you can't see it. The box jellyfish is almost entirely transparent, pale blue, ghost-like. Its bell can be the size of a basketball, with up to 60 tentacles trailing behind it, each one up to 3 meters long. And those tentacles are covered with millions, literally millions, of microscopic stinging cells called nematocysts. Each one a tiny, spring-loaded hypodermic needle filled with one of the most potent venoms on Earth. They don't fire on touch, they fire on chemical contact, the proteins in your skin, which means pantyhose will protect you. A full-body lycra suit will protect you. The nematocysts sense human skin chemistry and don't recognize fabric as prey. That's how Australians go swimming during stinger season. They put on what's essentially a full-body condom. They swim inside nets that stretch across designated safe zones. They keep bottles of vinegar on every beach, in boxes bolted to posts, because vinegar is the only thing that stops the unfired nematocysts from discharging more venom. Not fresh water, not urine, not ice, only vinegar. If someone gets stung and there's significant tentacle contact, the medical literature says anything over 700 millimeters of welts. Unconsciousness can follow within minutes, then death. The venom causes your cells to become porous, leaking potassium, leading to cardiovascular collapse. In children with their smaller body mass, the math is even worse. Since 1883, box jellyfish have killed at least 79 people in Australian waters. That's the official number. The last 12 fatalities were all children. All of them died within 5 minutes of being stung. 5 minutes. The most recent was a 14-year-old boy in February 2022. And here's the part that haunts me. This isn't some deep-sea monster. This isn't something that attacks divers in the open ocean. The box jellyfish prefers the same water tourists prefer. Shallow, warm, calm, clear. The kind of water that looks safe. The kind of water where you can see your feet, except you can't see the thing that's swimming toward you. Stinger season runs from November to May in tropical Australia. During those months, entire beaches display warning signs. Yellow signs with black text. Marine stingers, dangerous jellyfish. Swim within stinger enclosure only. Some beaches close entirely. And every year tourists arrive from places where jellyfish mean a mild sting, maybe some itching. They see the warm water, they see the beautiful reef, they see other people swimming, and they think, how bad could a jellyfish be? The sign tries to tell them. Most of them don't understand what it's saying. Because when we think jellyfish, we think mindless, we think of drifting, we think it's harmless. We don't think 24 eyes, actively hunting, invisible, carrying enough venom to kill 60 adults, watching you from water you thought was empty. The sign says marine stingers. What it means is there's something in there that can see you coming and you won't see it until it's too late. Case 6. Crocodiles inhabit this area. Saltwater crocodile signs, Australia. Let me tell you what's terrifying about saltwater crocodiles. It's not the size, though they can grow over 7 meters long and weigh more than a ton. It's not the bite force, though at 3,700 pounds per square inch, it's the strongest of any animal ever measured. It's not even the death roll, that spinning, tearing maneuver they use to rip off limbs of prey. It's the patience. Crocodiles have been around, essentially unchanged, for 200 million years. 200 million years of practice at one thing. I started thinking about this after reading about the attacks. Since protection laws were enacted in 1971, Australia has recorded 44 fatal saltwater crocodile attacks. That's not a lot, roughly 1 per year on average. You're more likely to die from a bee sting, but here's what the statistics don't tell you: the circumstances. Almost every attack follows the same pattern. Someone approaches the water's edge, a riverbank, a boat ramp, the shallow water near a beach. They don't see anything. The water looks empty, and then, in less than a second, something explodes from below the surface. The crocodile was there the whole time, watching, waiting. It might have been watching for hours, days. It doesn't matter. Crocodiles are cold-blooded. They barely use energy when they're still. They can wait longer than you can stay alert. And they learn. This is the part that got me. Crocodiles observe patterns. They notice when animals come to drink at the same spot, when fishermen clean their catch at the same boat ramp, when children swim at the same beach. They don't attack randomly. They return to places where they've seen opportunity before. In October 2002, a 23-year-old German student named Isabel von Jordan was taken in Kakadu National Park. She went swimming in sandy Billabong at night with a group of backpackers. Their tour guide told them it was safe. It wasn't. There were clear signs warning of large saltwater crocodiles in the area. A 4.6-meter crocodile grabbed her 10 meters from shore. Her body was recovered the next morning, only after rangers harpooned the animal. They found 7 other crocodiles in that same stretch of water. And here's the thing about those signs. They don't say, "Danger, crocodile attack imminent." They say something much more unsettling. Crocodiles inhabit this area. Present tense, ongoing, permanent. Because it's not a warning about a temporary hazard. It's a statement of fact about who lives there. You're entering their territory. You're the visitor. And they've been there for 200 million years, perfecting one skill, making prey believe the water is empty. So when you see that sign, crocodiles inhabit this area, understand what it's telling you. There's something in that water that has been hunting mammals since before there were humans. Something that watched the meteor kill the dinosaurs and thought, "I'll wait." Something that's watching you right now. And you won't see it until it moves. You've made it through Tier 2. The creatures that hunt. These are warnings about things that can kill you fast. But Tier 3 isn't about fast. The warnings in Tier 3 are about things that have been killing people for decades, centuries, things buried in the ground, things burning beneath your feet, things that were supposed to be over a long time ago, but aren't. These signs don't warn about something waiting to strike. They warn about something that already happened and never stopped. Tier 3, the deep. Case 7, quicksand, danger, Mont Saint-Michel Bay, France. Here's what Hollywood got wrong about quicksand. It doesn't suck you under. And here's what Hollywood got right. It can absolutely kill you. The difference is how. I learned this researching Mont Saint-Michel, the medieval abbey that rises from the tidal flats of Normandy like something from a fairy tale. 3 million tourists visit every year. Most of them have no idea they're standing at the edge of one of the most dangerous bays in Europe. The quicksand at Mont Saint-Michel has been killing people for 1,000 years. So here's the science. Quicksand is a non-Newtonian fluid, a colloid of fine sand, clay, and water that behaves like a solid until you step on it. The moment you apply pressure, the water and sand separate. The viscosity drops and you start to sink. But here's the critical part. Quicksand is twice as dense as the human body. You physically cannot sink below your waist. The buoyancy won't allow it. So how does it kill you? It traps you. The moment you try to pull your leg out, you create a vacuum beneath your foot. Researchers calculated that extracting a single foot from quicksand at a speed of just 1 centimeter per second requires the same force as lifting a medium-sized car. Your instinct, to struggle, to thrash, to pull, only drives you deeper and makes escape harder. And at Mont Saint-Michel, being trapped is a death sentence. Because the tide is coming. The tidal range, the difference between high and low tide, can reach 15 meters. That's a 4-story building. During spring tides, the sea withdraws 15 kilometers from the shore, exposing a vast lunar landscape of sand and mud. And then, within hours, all of it disappears underwater. Medieval pilgrims called it Saint Michael in Peril of the Sea. The danger is the combination: quicksand that traps you in place and tides that drown you where you stand. And contrary to popular belief, quicksand itself isn't going to swallow you whole. You'll float at waist level, completely stuck, watching the water rise around you inch by inch. That's the nightmare scenario. Not drowning in sand, but drowning in water while sand holds you in place. Today, guided tours take visitors across the bay. The guides know the safe paths. They carry long poles to test the ground. They teach tourists how to escape quicksand if they get caught. Lie back, float, wiggle your legs slowly to introduce water and reduce the vacuum. Don't panic, don't struggle. But every year, tourists ignore the warnings. They venture onto the flats alone without checking the tides, without a guide. The sign at Mont Saint-Michel doesn't say, "Quicksand area, stay out." It says something more honest: danger. Because the real danger isn't the quicksand. Quicksand is just the mechanism that holds you in place. The real danger is what comes next. Case 8. Underground fire, unstable ground, carbon monoxide. Centralia, Pennsylvania. Centralia, Pennsylvania. Population 5. It used to be a town of over 1,000 people. Schools, churches, businesses, homes that families had owned for generations. Now, it's a ghost town with smoking ground and a highway that buckles from the heat below. The signs at the edge of Centralia don't welcome visitors, they warn them. Danger: underground mine fire. Walking or driving in this area could result in serious injury or death. In 1962, the town decided to burn trash in an abandoned strip mine pit, a common practice at the time. What they didn't realize was that the pit was connected to a network of coal mines that ran beneath the entire region. The fire spread underground, and it never stopped. For over 60 years now, the fire has been burning beneath Centralia. It has consumed 8 million tons of coal. It stretches across 400 acres of underground tunnels. Temperatures in some areas exceed 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The ground itself is unstable. Sinkholes open without warning, venting steam and toxic gases. In 1981, a 12-year-old boy named Todd Domboski was walking through his grandmother's backyard when the earth suddenly gave way beneath him. He fell into a sinkhole 4 feet wide and 150 feet deep, filled with hot steam and carbon monoxide. He survived only because his cousin grabbed his arm before he disappeared completely. Carbon monoxide seeps up through cracks in the soil. The gas is odorless and invisible. You can be standing in a lethal concentration and not know it until you collapse. By the mid-1980s, the state and federal governments decided Centralia couldn't be saved. They offered to buy out the remaining residents. Most accepted. The town was condemned. But a handful refused to leave. Today, 5 people still live in Centralia. They've been granted lifetime tenancy by the state. When they die, their properties revert to government ownership. No new residents are allowed. No new construction is permitted. The streets are still there, cracked and overgrown. The foundations of demolished homes are still visible. The old cemetery still stands, gravestones marking people who died decades before the fire started. Their remains now resting above an inferno that burns day and night. Engineers estimate the fire could continue burning for another 250 years. There's enough coal beneath Centralia to fuel it for centuries. The signs warn you not to enter, but the fire doesn't need you to come closer. It's already moving, slowly, steadily, consuming everything in its path. Centralia isn't a disaster that happened. It's a disaster that's still happening. Right now, while you're watching this, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. Case 9. Danger: unexploded ordnance. You're hiking through a forest in Belgium, or walking across a field in Laos, or swimming off the coast of Okinawa, and you see a sign you don't expect. Danger: unexploded munitions. Do not touch any metal objects. Most warning signs protect you from things that exist naturally: cliffs, animals, weather. This sign is protecting you from something humans built, something designed specifically to kill, something buried in the ground decades ago and still waiting. Unexploded ordnance, UXO, bombs, shells, grenades, and landmines that were dropped, fired, or planted during wars that ended generations ago but never detonated. The bombs haven't gotten safer with time. They've gotten more dangerous. The fuses corrode. The explosives become unstable. A bomb that didn't detonate in 1944 because of a manufacturing defect might detonate in 2025 because someone's shovel grazed it the wrong way. In France, there's a 460 square mile area called the Zone Rouge, the Red Zone. It's been officially designated too dangerous for human habitation. The soil is so saturated with unexploded shells, chemical weapons, and human remains from World War I that the French government estimates it will take 300 to 700 years to fully clear. Farmers in northern France call it the Iron Harvest, the annual crop of shells and bombs that work their way to the surface each spring. Some of them still contain mustard gas. But Europe isn't even the worst of it. In Laos, a country that was never officially at war with the United States, American planes dropped over 2 million tons of bombs between 1964 and 1973. That's more than was dropped on Germany and Japan combined during World War II. Approximately 30% of those bombs didn't explode. They're still there, buried in rice paddies, hidden in forests, scattered across villages where children play. Since the bombing ended, unexploded American ordnance has killed or injured over 50,000 people in Laos. About 40% of the victims are children, who often mistake the small cluster munitions, round metallic objects about the size of a tennis ball, for toys. In Okinawa, Japan, an estimated 10,000 tons of unexploded American munitions remain buried from the 1945 battle. Construction projects are regularly halted when crews discover bombs. Disposal is so routine that Okinawa schools run regular drills for what to do if a bomb is found on campus. The signs exist because the wars never really ended. Not for the ground, not for the people who live there. The fighting stopped, the treaties were signed, the soldiers went home. But the bombs stayed, and they're still armed, still waiting. The signs don't tell you what to do if you find one. There's no safe distance. There's no protocol for civilians. The signs just tell you the truth. This ground remembers what we did to it, and it hasn't forgiven us yet. Tier 3 showed you things that happened long ago and never stopped. These are warnings about patience, about time, about the fact that some dangers don't care whether you remember them or not. But Tier 4 is different. Tier 4 is about the signs most people never see, the warnings hidden in places you'd never think to look, the dangers that exist not in remote wilderness or foreign countries, but in your own backyard. And the one sign that tells you, in the most explicit terms possible, that death is waiting on the other side. And people still don't listen. Tier 4, The Abyss. Case 10, Danger of Death. UK electricity substation signs. If you've ever walked through Britain, you've seen them. Yellow and black, a lightning bolt striking through a figure. 3 words, Danger of Death. They're on nearly every substation, transformer box, and electrical enclosure in the country. There are over 400,000 substations in the UK, which means there are hundreds of thousands of these signs. You've walked past them 1,000 times without thinking about them. I used to dismiss them as overcautious, legal boilerplate, the kind of warning that exists because some safety committee somewhere decided they needed to cover themselves. Then I learned about Harrison Ballantyne. Harrison was 11 years old. He lived in a small village near Rugby in a place with no railway station. On June 27, 2017, he was out playing with his friends when their football went over a waist-high wooden fence into a rail freight depot. Harrison climbed the fence. He climbed onto what looked like an abandoned freight wagon to get a better view and find the ball. He never touched the overhead power cables. The electricity jumped. At 25,000 volts, the arc flash reached across the gap between the cables and Harrison's body. He was hit instantly. His friends watched. There was nothing the paramedics could do. Harrison died at the scene. Here's what most people don't understand about high voltage electricity. It doesn't need you to touch it. At those voltages, the current can ionize the air itself, creating a conductive pathway through empty space. The electricity doesn't wait for contact. It reaches out. The general rule is approximately 1 millimeter of arc distance for every 1,000 volts. At 25,000 volts, that's roughly 25 millimeters, about an inch. But that's under ideal conditions. Humidity, dust, body position, the geometry of the conductors. All of these can extend the arc distance dramatically. People have been killed standing feet away from high voltage lines. And when that arc forms, something else happens. The temperature at the point of contact can reach 35,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 4 times hotter than the surface of the sun. At those temperatures, metal vaporizes. Copper turns to plasma. Human tissue doesn't burn, it explodes. The pressure wave from the rapidly expanding air can throw a person across the room. The sound can rupture eardrums. The light can blind. This is what the sign is trying to tell you. Not be careful. Not mild danger, danger of death. Everything about the scene said safe. The only thing that said otherwise was the sign. And here's the thing about signs. They only work if you believe them. There's a phenomenon in safety research called warning fatigue. When people see the same warning repeated over and over, on every substation, every fence, every piece of electrical equipment, they start to treat it as background noise. The brain categorizes it as another piece of visual clutter. The words lose their meaning. Danger of death becomes just another part of the landscape. But the danger is real. The physics don't care whether you've seen the sign 1,000 times before. The electricity doesn't know you're just retrieving a football. 35,000 degrees, 4 times hotter than the sun. An arc that can jump a foot through open air. Death in a fraction of a second. The sign isn't dramatic. The sign is accurate. Case 11. Extreme avalanche danger. The backcountry doesn't forgive mistakes. Every winter, ski resorts across the Rocky Mountains, the Alps, and the Himalayas post signs at the boundaries of patrolled terrain. Some are polite suggestions, some are legal disclaimers. And then there's this one: extreme avalanche danger. Entering this area may result in death. This isn't a liability warning, this is physics. An avalanche is not a slow-moving wall of snow that gives you time to run. It's a fluid dynamics event. A slab of snow the size of a football field can break loose and accelerate to 80 miles per hour in less than 5 seconds. You cannot outrun it. You cannot out-ski it. Once the snow starts moving, you have maybe 2 seconds to react before you're swept off your feet. And then you're inside it. People who have survived avalanches describe the sensation of being tumbled in a washing machine. If the washing machine were filled with concrete, the snow packs around you as it moves. When it stops, it sets like cement. If your arms aren't in front of your face, when the avalanche settles, you won't be able to move them. You'll be frozen in place, in whatever position you landed. If you're lucky, you're near the surface. If you're unlucky, if you were pulled deep into the debris field, no one will find you until spring. In the United States, avalanches kill an average of 27 people every year. That number has been climbing as backcountry skiing and snowboarding become more popular. And here's the statistic that should make you pay attention. Over 90% of avalanche fatalities are triggered by the victim or someone in their party. The mountain doesn't hunt you. You step onto an unstable slope and your weight is the trigger. You kill yourself. Avalanche forecasters are among the most skilled risk assessors in the world. They study snowpack layers, temperature gradients, wind loading, slope angles. They can tell you with remarkable accuracy which slopes are dangerous on any given day. That information is freely available, posted at trailheads, published online, broadcast on radio frequencies that every backcountry skier can access. The signs at the boundary tell you exactly what the forecasters have found. Extreme avalanche danger. It means the snowpack is unstable. It means human-triggered avalanches are likely. It means if you cross this line and ski this slope, the odds are against you. People cross anyway. They look at the untouched powder. They think about the photos they'll post. They tell themselves they know what they're doing. The mountain doesn't care what you tell yourself. It's been here for millions of years. It's watched countless people make the same decision, and it's buried all of them the same way. Silently, completely, without malice or memory. The sign at the boundary doesn't beg you to stay. It just states the facts. What you do with those facts is up to you. Case 12. Stop. Prevent your death. We're ending where we started. Back at a cave in Florida. Back at a sign that doesn't warn you or advise you or suggest that you be careful. It tells you, in the most direct language possible, to stop. The Grim Reaper himself is on this sign, pointing at you. The text reads, "Stop. Prevent your death. Go no further." And below that, there's nothing in this cave worth dying for. This is the Eagle's Nest Sink, one of the most dangerous underwater caves in the world. A flooded sinkhole in Chassahowitzka, Florida, that drops 310 feet straight down before opening into a labyrinth of tunnels that extend for miles. The sign was installed after multiple deaths. Divers kept entering the cave. Divers kept dying. The local dive community, the people who actually explore this cave, who know its passages and its dangers, got together and designed the most explicit warning they could imagine. It didn't work. Since the sign was installed in 1999, at least 10 more people have died in Eagle's Nest. Some were untrained, some were experienced, some were cave diving instructors who had logged thousands of hours underground. The cave doesn't discriminate. In 2016, 2 highly experienced technical divers, Patrick Peacock and Chris Rittenmeyer, entered Eagle's Nest for a deep explorative dive. They never came back. Their bodies were found at a depth of 260 feet. Peacock wasn't a beginner, he was a cave diving instructor. He had helped train other divers to survive exactly this kind of environment. He knew the risks better than almost anyone alive. He died anyway. Cave diving is often called the most dangerous recreational activity in the world. The mortality rate is difficult to calculate because the community is small, but estimates suggest that cave divers die at a rate far exceeding almost any other extreme sport. The danger isn't the water, it's the overhead environment. In open water, if something goes wrong, you swim up. In a cave, there is no up. There's only forward or back. And if you've lost visibility, if your guideline has been damaged, if you've exceeded your gas supply, you might not be able to find either. The silt on the floor of a cave can reduce visibility to 0 in seconds. One careless fin kick, and you're swimming blind in a tunnel that might branch into a dozen directions, only one of which leads to the surface. Your air supply is finite, your time is running out, and you can't see your hand in front of your face. This is how people die in Eagle's Nest. The sign at the entrance knows this. The Grim Reaper on that sign has watched it happen again and again. And still, people swim past. They read the words, "Prevent your death," and decide that the warning doesn't apply to them. Maybe they're experienced. Maybe they're confident. Maybe they're just curious. It doesn't matter. The cave is dark. The cave is patient, and the cave doesn't read signs. You've now seen 12 warning signs from around the world. Signs about things that fall, things that burn, things that hunt. Signs about dangers that have been killing people for centuries, and dangers that won't finish killing for centuries more. But here's what every one of these signs has in common. They exist because someone died. No one puts up a warning until someone proves it's needed. Every danger sign, every keep out notice, every risk of death placard exists because a human being didn't survive. These signs are tombstones written in advance. And the strongest part? You can choose whether to become one of the people they're warning about. You can read the sign that says, "Rip currents, danger," and decide not to swim. You can see thin ice and stay on the shore. You can look at the Grim Reaper pointing at you from the entrance of a cave and turn around. Most warning signs protect you from things you can't control, but some of them are simply offering you a choice. The question is whether you're paying attention.